Hello, sleepy cuties. Where are you watching from tonight? Somewhere warm and quiet, I hope. Go ahead. Pull up your blanket. Snuggle in close. Turn off the lights. And let the glow of the screen be the only thing left in your little world. Let's drift together now into a story where dreams meet shadows, and even Pokémon can whisper from the mist. Close your eyes if you like. Let's go somewhere forgotten, gentle, and just a little strange. Let's walk into Lavender Town. The sky was soft with twilight, that quiet in-between color just before the stars opened their eyes. And somewhere far, far from the busy cities, tucked behind silver hills and ghost-gray trees, there was a place known only in whispers. Lavender Town. It wasn't loud. It was the quietest place of all. Even the Pokémon were gentle here. Tiny Ghastly floated like sleepy bubbles through the air, and the wind always carried a hum, low, almost like it was remembering something. Ash and Pikachu had been walking all day. Their steps were slow, their breaths calm. Tired, but safe. The road to Lavender Town had grown quieter the farther they went. No birds, no rustling. Just the hush of trees and the hush inside themselves. As the sky darkened, little lanterns appeared, orange lights flickering on tall wooden poles, and just beyond them, rooftops. Lavender Town. Ash knelt down beside Pikachu, who was yawning and rubbing its soft cheeks. "Almost there, buddy," he said. Pikachu blinked slowly, then nodded. Together they walked into the sleeping town. No voices. No footsteps. Just curtains drifting behind windows and soft chimes that didn't match the wind. A shop sign creaked, though there was no breeze. A door swayed open just slightly, though no one was inside. And in the distance, standing taller than anything else, was a tower. Old. Still. And waiting. Ash glanced at it, a flicker of curiosity in his chest. Pikachu moved closer to his side. They passed a sign that read, "Lavender Tower for those who sleep forever." Ash didn't say anything. They kept walking until they found a wooden gazebo in a small park. Quiet. Safe. They curled up together, Ash leaning back on his backpack, Pikachu nestled under his arm. The fog rolled in again. Gentle. Cool. A blanket made of clouds. And just as Ash began to close his eyes, a sound. Not footsteps. Not a voice. But music. Soft, strange, almost like it was floating up from the ground. Ash sat up. Pikachu opened its eyes. And from the base of the tower, a pale blue light flickered once. Just once. Then vanished. Ash whispered, "Did you see that?" Pikachu nodded, ears still. But the music kept playing. Only one or two notes. Like a lullaby meant for someone who never woke up. Ash lay back down slowly, eyes fixed on the tower's shape. "Just the wind," he mumbled, though his voice didn't sound sure. Pikachu stayed awake a little longer. And in the tower behind the mist, something shifted. Not waking, not moving, just remembering. Ash woke slowly. He wasn't sure what time it was, but the sky was still dark, just tinged with the soft purple before sunrise. Pikachu was still curled up beside him, breathing softly. But something had stirred Ash from sleep. A sound. The music again. Faint. But this time, closer. Ash sat up and looked toward the tower. It was quiet. Still. But the fog had thickened. And low beneath it, near the ground, a glow. Blue. Flickering. Almost like a lantern being carried. But swaying too smoothly. Floating. Ash gently shook Pikachu awake. "Hey," he whispered. Do you hear that? Pikachu opened one eye, then both. It heard it too. The music played just a few notes, then paused. And then, a whisper. Not words. Just breath, carried through leaves. Ash stood. The fog coiled around his shoes. We're just gonna look, he said softly. Just a peek. Pikachu climbed onto his shoulder, quiet, alert. They walked across the empty park. Their steps were almost silent. Each breath hung in the air like little ghosts of warmth. The glow moved. Not fast, not far. Just deeper into the mist, toward the tower's base. Ash followed it. Not scared, just curious. A little nervous, maybe. But in that dreamy, slow kind of way where everything feels far away, even your own footsteps. The closer they got to the tower, the colder the air felt. Not biting cold, just old. Like still inside a forgotten drawer, the kind of cold that smells like time. They reached the front steps of Lavender Tower. The old wooden door creaked open, just a crack. Not from the wind. There was no wind. Ash paused. The music stopped. The glow vanished. Silence again. But Pikachu looked up at the door. And then, down. A single blue flower rested on the stone step. It hadn't been there before. It wasn't wet from the mist. It looked placed. Ash knelt down and gently picked it up. It was cool in his hand. What is this place? He whispered. Pikachu pressed its nose to the door. Ash stood. Should we go inside? The door creaked a little more, like something answering. But he didn't move. Not yet. Instead, he stepped back and sat on the cold stone, holding the blue flower gently in his fingers. They stayed there until the sky turned pink, and the stars disappeared one by one. The music didn't return. Neither did the glow. But something had changed. Lavender Town was never loud. But now, it felt like it was listening. Ash leaned back, resting again beside Pikachu. The flower still in his hand. The tower behind him. And dreams just beginning to hum again, like a soft wind waiting to carry them. The morning light in Lavender Town was pale and silver. It didn't shine. It just rested. Ash sat on the tower steps, the little blue flower still in his hand. Pikachu nuzzled beside him, watching the still open door. They hadn't gone inside last night. Something about it felt too quiet, like the air itself was holding its breath. But now, with the sky brightening, Ash felt a little braver. I think we should go in, he whispered. Pikachu gave a slow nod. The door was old, its wood soft and worn like driftwood. It opened with a groan, not loud but long, like it hadn't been touched in years. Inside was darkness, but not cold, not scary, just slow. Ash stepped in. Dust floated like stars in the single beam of sunlight from a cracked window above. Stone steps curved upward, and candles lined the walls, melted, forgotten, but untouched by time. The air was filled with the soft scent of incense, old paper, and something floral, like the blue flower still tucked behind Ash's ear. On the first floor, there were rows of tiny wooden markers. Each one had a name. Each one had a tiny charm tied to it. Some had Pokeballs. Some had little stones or photos faded from time. Ash stepped carefully between them. It was quiet. Until Pikachu stopped, ears twitching. Ash followed Pikachu's gaze. One of the wooden markers had no name. Just a circle carved into the surface. No photo, no charm. Just silence. Ash reached out to touch it. But before his fingers could meet the wood, the music returned. Very faint. One note. Then two. Then a soft, sleepy melody. It seemed to come from above, farther up the tower. Ash turned slowly, staring at the spiral staircase. It disappeared into darkness above. Pikachu stepped back slightly. Ash whispered, "We're okay. We'll just see where it's coming from." The first step creaked gently under his weight. Up they went. The second floor was filled with books, dusty shelves, handwritten notes, and drawings of ghost-type Pokémon. Ash paused to look at a sketch. It was of Gengar. But behind it, a smaller figure, faded. Like the artist had erased it, then changed their mind. Ash moved on. As they reached the next step, they noticed something on the floor. A small, carved nameplate fallen from the wall. Ash picked it up. The name was almost scratched out. But if he looked closely, no, just 5 letters. But the last one, missing. "Rana?" Ash whispered. Pikachu looked up at him. Suddenly a soft thump from above. They both froze. Not loud, not fast. Just one thump. Like something sitting down. Ash took a breath. He was still holding the nameplate. Pikachu climbed to his shoulder, pressing close. Another note of music played. Higher this time. Sadder. Lonelier. Ash whispered, "Let's go." And they continued, one slow step at a time. Behind them, the candle flames flickered gently. And below, the marker with the carved circle seemed to lean just slightly, as though listening again. Ash stepped quietly, the wooden nameplate still in his hand, scratched and old. Pikachu clung to his shoulder, its tail swaying slightly with each step. The spiral stairs creaked under them as they reached the next landing. Here the tower opened into a wide, round room. It was almost empty, except for one thing. A piano. Old. Painted white once and now faded to a soft gray. His keys yellowed, some chipped. Beside it, a stool. And on the stool, nothing. No one. But the music was playing again. Soft. Uncertain. Like someone pressing one key at a time, trying to remember a song they'd forgotten long ago. Ash took a few steps forward. The air felt different here, lighter, but sad. The kind of sad that doesn't hurt. The kind that makes you want to hold your breath and listen. Pikachu hopped off Ash's shoulder and approached the piano. The keys moved. Not by much. Just the tiniest twitch. Ash watched closely. No wind. No wires. But one key, pressed down. A soft note. Then another. And another. They weren't random. It was a lullaby. Ash remembered it faintly. He'd heard it in Lavender town center, where the shopkeeper hummed it quietly to herself. But this version was slower. Lonelier. And the notes felt careful, as if the one playing was afraid of being heard. Ash sat on the floor. He didn't speak. He just listened. The nameplate rested in his lap. The song went on for a few minutes, then stopped. Pikachu turned to look behind them. There on the far wall of the room was a dusty picture frame. Ash stood and walked to it. He wiped away the grime with his sleeve. Inside was a sketch, not a photo. A girl, smiling, beside a haunter. She wore a ribbon in her hair. Below, in faded ink, Rana and her friend, Tower's songkeeper. Ash looked down at the nameplate again. It matched. He whispered, "Rana." Suddenly the keys played again, faster this time. Like someone was trying to speak through sound. The melody rose, hopeful, then paused. Ash stepped closer to the piano. Very gently, he placed the nameplate on top of it. The music stopped. Then a soft breeze brushed past them. It wasn't cold. It felt grateful. The stool moved just a little, as though someone had just stood up. Ash looked around. The air sparkled slightly, like dust catching sunlight, even in the dark. Pikachu blinked slowly. Its ears twitched once, then relaxed. Something had changed in the room. It felt lighter, brighter, as if someone had finally remembered who they were and was ready to rest. Ash whispered, "Thank you." He turned to leave the room. As they reached the stairs, he glanced back one last time. The piano stood still. The nameplate was gone. But on the stool sat the blue flower, fresh, as if it had just been picked. Ash stepped carefully down the stairs with the Pikachu beside him. The tower was silent once again. But it wasn't empty. Something was different now. The heavy feeling that once filled the halls had lifted. The shadows no longer leaned too close. The quiet no longer pressed in. Ash felt it in his chest, like a sigh. Like the tower itself had let go of something it had been holding for too long. Still, he wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. They paused at the second floor where the sketches of ghost Pokémon lined the shelves. One drawing had changed. It now showed Rana, not faded, not half erased. She was smiling, and behind her, the haunter floated with one hand on her shoulder. Below the image, fresh ink shimmered. "Sleep now, little friend." Ash touched the page gently. Then behind him, something whispered. Not a voice, not words, just breath, like someone saying shh in the softest way. He turned. No one. But Pikachu was looking up, ears perked. They followed the sound, down one more floor, back to the wooden markers lined up like tiny beds for stories long forgotten. They passed the nameless marker again, the one with only a circle carved in it. But now, there was a name, in careful handwriting. Rana. A tiny blue flower was tied to the side, still fresh, still glowing faintly. Ash reached out, not to touch, just to look. He bowed his head slightly. Pikachu did the same. Then, they turned to go. But the whisper returned, not from the grave, not from the piano. From the very walls of the tower. It wasn't scary. It was gentle. Almost sleepy. As if something was telling them, "Don't forget." Ash paused at the door. He turned back to look at the tower one more time. Above, where the piano room stood hidden in shadow, one window now glowed softly, like a candle lit in the wind. The lullaby played once more. But only for a moment. And then, stillness. Ash stepped into the pale light of Lavender Town. The sky was turning golden, a soft sun peeking out from behind the misty hills. Pikachu yawned and stretched. Ash smiled. "We should get breakfast," he said. But Pikachu glanced back toward the tower, its ears still twitching. The whisper still danced on the air. A promise. Not of fear, but of memory, of dreams. The sun rose slowly over Lavender Town, painting the rooftops in golden mist. Ash and Pikachu walked away from the tower. They didn't speak much. There wasn't a need to. Behind them, the windows of the tower glowed softly, then dimmed, one by one, as if someone inside had finally gone to sleep. The wind in the trees whispered gently. No, not sad. Just quiet. Ash looked down at the blue flower now tucked behind Pikachu's ear. It still shimmered slightly. just enough to remind them of the song, the girl, and the ghostly hands that had waited so long to be remembered. They passed the shop again, where the old woman now swept the front step. She gave them a small nod. "You saw her, didn't you?" she asked quietly. Ash smiled. "We listened," he replied. And that was enough. They left Lavender Town behind, but the feeling stayed. Some stories don't end. They rest, like lullabies waiting for the next dreamer. And now, sleepy cutie, it's time for you to rest too. Close your eyes. Let the tower fade into your dreams. Let the whispers turn into soft breathing. And remember, even the spookiest stories can end in peace. Lavender Town sleeps now, and so will you. Good night. Sleep well, and dream soft little dreams. Ash and Pikachu will meet you in the next quiet tale. This is the story of a boy who brought something home without knowing it was already following him. Let's begin. It started on a foggy evening in a quiet town near Fuchsia Forest. Ash and Pikachu were just passing through a peaceful detour after a long week of travel. The town was small. Stone lanterns lined the winding paths, glowing faintly. Fog rolled in low, curling around the houses like lazy clouds. Ash pulled his jacket closer. Even Pikachu stuck close to his leg, ears low. Strange weather, Ash said to no one in particular. A soft breeze carried a whisper, not a voice, just a shiver of sound. They followed the trail that led past a small lake. The water was so still, it looked like glass. But something was off. Pikachu stopped. It stared at the lake's edge. Ash followed its gaze and saw it. A shadow, not his, not Pikachu's. Just there, on the path ahead. Round, fuzzy, with short little arms. A Gengar-shaped shadow. But no Gengar. Ash blinked. The shadow didn't. It just stayed there, unmoving, smiling. And he stepped forward slowly. Still no Pokémon in sight. Just the shadow, as if something invisible was casting it. Then the wind blew again, and the shadow twitched. Just a little, like it noticed him. Ash whispered, "Hello?" No answer. But when he looked again, the shadow was gone. Not moved. Not faded. Gone. Ash waited. The fog thickened around them. "Let's head back," he said quietly. Even Pikachu didn't argue. They returned to the small cottage the innkeeper had given them for the night. Warm tea. A quiet fireplace. The night should have been calm. But Ash couldn't sleep. Because when he looked at the wall beside his bed, he saw it again. That shadow. Small. Round. Smiling. Even though there was no Gengar in the room, Pikachu growled softly. The fire crackled once and then dimmed. The room chilled just a little. Ash sat up. The shadow stayed. And that smile widened. "Hi there again, little dreamer. Still awake? Just barely? That's okay. Let the fog drift in around you. Let your breathing match the gentle hush of the wind. We're still safe. We're still warm. And the shadow is still smiling. Let's go back to Ash and Pikachu's little cottage, where the fire is low and the corners of the room are a little too dark." Ash blinked slowly, half asleep, the room quiet but not still. That Gengar-shaped shadow hadn't moved in an hour. And yet, it felt like it was watching. Pikachu lay curled up beside him, but twitched now and then. Little paws kicking in its sleep. Maybe dreaming of chasing something. Or maybe being chased. Ash tried to look away. He turned on his side. He pulled the blanket up. He shut his eyes tight. And then he heard it. A soft giggle. Right near the window. He sat up fast. The room was empty. The curtain moved gently, though the window was shut tight. The shadow was gone from the wall. He got out of bed slowly. Pikachu stirred, confused and tired. Ash opened the door to the hallway, expecting silence. But instead, laughter. Soft. Echoing. Familiar. That Gengar giggle. The one every trainer hears during a ghost battle. But this wasn't a battle. Ash tiptoed down the hall. Floorboards creaked under his feet. The giggle echoed again, behind a door that wasn't there before. A door made of old, dark wood. No knob. Just a faint symbol carved into it, a tiny crescent moon with a shadowy smile beneath it. Ash reached for it. As soon as his fingers touched the surface, the door vanished. In its place was just wall. But the laughter didn't stop. Now it was behind him. He turned quickly. Nothing. But Pikachu had followed him, fur on end, tail sparking gently. They looked back toward the bedroom, and the shadow was there again. But this time, it was on the floor. Not upright. Crawling. Ash stepped back. The shadow moved forward. But when Pikachu let out a low growl and sparked just a little, the shadow paused and giggled again. Then it turned slowly and melted into the floor. Gone. Ash stood in silence. This wasn't an ordinary ghost Pokemon. It wasn't haunting the house. It was haunting him. Pikachu pressed close to his leg. Ash knelt beside it. "We'll figure it out," he whispered. "Tomorrow. In the light." They returned to bed, this time sleeping back to back. But even in his dreams, Ash could feel a smile, floating behind him, waiting, watching. Let's return to Ash and Pikachu. They slept through the rest of the night. But morning didn't feel like morning at all. The sun rose, but barely. The sky was pale and heavy, like it didn't want to shine too brightly. Ash splashed water on his face and leaned over the sink. A simple, quiet morning. Until he looked up at the mirror. He froze. There it was again. Behind him. That shadow. Perfectly shaped like Gengar. But grinning wider than ever. Ash spun around. Nothing. But when he looked back at the mirror, the shadow was still there. Grinning. Tilting its head slowly. As if it knew something he didn't. He reached toward the glass. The surface felt cold. Too cold. And then, drip. Ash looked down. The faucet had stopped. But water was leaking from the mirror. Not the sink. The glass itself. Like tears. Ash backed away. Pikachu leapt to the counter beside him, growling low again. And then, just like before, the reflection changed. Now it was just Ash. Tired. Confused. The Gengar was gone. But it didn't feel like it had left. It felt like it had simply moved. Somewhere else. They stepped out of the cottage to clear their heads. Fog still curled around the trees. Pikachu sniffed the air. They passed a puddle in the road, shallow, still, and quiet. Ash glanced down. And there it was again. The reflection. Not his. Not Pikachu's. Gengar's. It stood in the puddle, upside down, its smile shimmering like oil on water. This time Ash didn't jump. He just watched. And the reflection waved. But the real world stayed empty. "Why are you following me?" Ash whispered. A small sound floated up from the puddle. A single word. Soft, muffled, distant. "Friend." Then the puddle rippled, and the reflection was gone. Ash stared at the water. Pikachu looked up at him. Neither of them spoke. Because what if it was a friend? A lonely one? A shadow that didn't want to scare him? Just stay close? Ash crouched beside the puddle. If you want to be friends, he said softly, you don't have to hide. Silence. Then the tiniest ripple formed on the surface. It shaped into a little smile. Just for a moment. Then vanished. The breeze felt warmer, softer. But Ash still wasn't sure. Was Gengar lonely? Or was he playing? And if he was playing, what would he do next? Ash couldn't shake the feeling. But somewhere, just behind his shoulder, a grin was always waiting. That night, they set up camp near the edge of the forest. A fire crackled. A soft bedroll. Pikachu curled up against Ash's chest. But when Ash looked into the flames, he saw it again. Not in the fire. Behind it, that grin. Low to the ground. Tilting. Hovering just at the edge of vision. Ash didn't move. He didn't speak. The shadow didn't either. It just smiled. And then the fire blinked. Just for a second. Like someone had closed their hand around the flame and let it go. When the fire returned, the smile was gone. But Ash knew. It hadn't left. It had gotten closer. In the days that followed, the smile began to show up everywhere. On the bark of a tree. In the swirl of a puddle. Reflected in a spoon. Sometimes it blinked. Sometimes it moved. Sometimes it just stared. But no one else could see it. Not even Pikachu. When Ash pointed, nothing. When he whispered about it, silence. But Gengar's smile didn't go away. Ash grew quieter. He barely spoke at lunch. He walked with his hands in his pockets, head low. He wasn't afraid anymore. Just tired. And the smile? It grew wider. One night, Ash dreamt of the Pokémon Center. He was sitting in the waiting room, alone, and from the hallway, a shape drifted forward. Gengar. But not made of shadow this time. It looked soft, tired too, and it sat down beside him. They didn't speak. But Gengar reached out a round little hand and placed it over Ash's. His smile wasn't wide anymore. It was sad. Lonely. Ash woke with a start. The moonlight shone across the campsite, and at the edge of his bedroll in the dirt, there it was, drawn in the dust by a round finger. That same little smile, but smaller, gentler. Ash touched it lightly with his fingertip. The wind didn't blow. The trees didn't move. But deep in the woods, he thought he heard the quietest voice. Don't leave me. Your breathing is so slow now. Maybe your eyes are already closed. That's okay. You can listen with your heart, too. Because the forest is calling, and Ash is ready to follow. The next morning, Ash awoke to something strange. There were footprints. Soft, small, round. Leading away from the campsite. Not from him. Not from Pikachu. He looked at Pikachu, still curled up, blinking sleepily. The footprints shimmered faintly in the morning light, like shadow melted into dew. Ash didn't hesitate. He followed. The trail led deep into the woods, past twisted trees and silent stones, until finally, the path opened into a circle of pale grass. The sky above was hazy gray, and in the center of the clearing, a stump. Old, hollow, broken at the top. Ash stepped closer. He could feel it. The cold, the stillness. The air felt different here, as if the world had stopped to listen. Pikachu stood beside him, ears low. Ash crouched beside the hollow stump and looked in. It was deeper than it should have been. So deep, in fact, that it looked like it never ended. And from its depths came that whisper. "Don't leave me." A wind rose from the hollow. It wasn't harsh, it was soft, almost like breath. Ash looked around the clearing, and suddenly they appeared. Dozens of little shadows. Small, flickering, gentle. Not dangerous. Not scary. Just lonely. They circled the stump like a quiet dance. They weren't wild Pokémon. They weren't ghosts. Not exactly. They were memories. Of laughter, of battles, of forgotten moments. And standing at the very edge was Gengar. The real one. Not a shadow and not a reflection. He looked smaller than before. Tired. Curled forward. And no longer smiling. Ash approached carefully. Pikachu followed slowly, then stopped and sat. Gengar looked up, and Ash sat down beside him. No words, just silence. Because now he understood. Gengar wasn't haunting him. He wasn't playing tricks. He had followed Ash because he didn't want to be forgotten. Ash reached into his backpack, pulled out a small, round object. A poke puff. He set it gently between them. Gengar looked down, then up, and smiled. Not wide. Not mischievous. Just real. Just enough. Ash and Pikachu stayed in the clearing with Gengar for a long while. They didn't speak. They didn't move much. Just sat. As the wind circled through the grass and the little shadows flickered around them like fireflies. Then Gengar stood. He didn't look sad. He didn't look scared. Just ready? He floated toward the stump. Not fast. Just slowly, like a cloud in a still sky. Ash stood too. "Thank you," he whispered. Gengar paused at the edge of the hollow. He looked back one last time. His eyes sparkled. His mouth curved into that old grin. But this time it wasn't eerie. It was full of peace. Then, soft as smoke, he drifted down into the hollow, and the wind settled. The little shadows faded. The clearing grew warm. The trees began to hum again with life. And just like that, he was gone. Ash and Pikachu left the forest together. But something stayed with them. A quiet feeling. That even in the strangest moments, even in the places no one dares to look, there are spirits who don't want to scare you. They just don't want to be forgotten. And now, sleepy cutie, it's your turn to rest. Let the wind fade. Let Gengar's smile drift into your dreams like a soft shimmer. The shadows are calm. The forest is still. And the night is wrapped around you like a blanket. Close your eyes. Take one last cozy breath. And know this. You are safe. You are loved. And the gentle dreams are waiting just for you. Good night. Sleep tight. And remember, even shadows smile sometimes. Because tonight's story comes from a place where the air is thin, where the snow never melts, and where only the strongest trainers dare to climb. It's called Mount Silver. And up there, something waits. Let me tell you what happened to the trainer who went, but never came back. It began with footsteps in the snow. Not loud, not rushed, just steady. One pair, a lone trainer climbing higher and higher into the icy mist. He was strong, one of the best. His name, people have forgotten. But they remember what he said, because those were his last words. He's still here. Long before that, he had trained harder than anyone. Battled champions. Earned respect. But there was one opponent he never found. A ghost of a legend. A boy with a cap, silent as the mountain, stronger than anyone. Some said he was only a story, a wandering memory that drifted between the trees of Mount Silver. But this trainer wanted to know the truth. He wanted to find him. He packed light. He told no one. And he climbed. The higher he went, the quieter the world became. No wild Pokemon. No footprints. Only wind. And whispers. The mountain wasn't like anywhere else. It didn't roar, it hushed. It made your thoughts louder than your steps. At night, the trainer lit a small campfire. He stared into it, barely blinking. And just beyond the flame's edge, a figure. Far away. Still. Watching. In the morning, the trainer followed where the figure had stood. He found a scarf, red, half buried in snow, still warm. He picked it up slowly and whispered, "Red." That was the name. The legend. The boy who vanished into this very mountain. And suddenly, he knew. He was getting close. As the clouds thickened and snow fell heavier, he heard it again. Not footsteps. Not wind. Just a voice. Quiet and broken by distance. But clear enough to freeze the heart. Go back. The scarf in his hand still held warmth, but the air around him grew colder. The trainer wrapped it around his wrist. Not out of fear, but respect. He whispered again. "Red," as if the name itself might answer him. That night, the campfire wouldn't light. Every match he struck fizzled out in the wind. And when he checked the snow behind him, he found footprints. But not his own. Too small, too straight, and too deep. Like whoever made them was heavier than they should have been. He followed them. Step after step. Up the side of the cliff, past the frozen trees that didn't bend or move, until they simply ended. Right in the middle of nowhere. No turn, no slide, no jump. Just gone. Like the figure had vanished. He didn't sleep that night. He just sat. Wide-eyed, holding his Pokeballs in his lap. His Pokemon didn't come out. They didn't want to. Even they felt it. A presence. Watching. Waiting. And when he finally did close his eyes for just a second, he heard it. A Pokedex voice. Broken. Crackling through wind. Pikachu. An electric-type Pokemon. His cheeks. Static. That voice hadn't played in years. And yet there it was, somewhere in the dark, echoing like a memory long buried. He looked around. No one. Just the echo. The next morning, there was something in his bag. He hadn't put it there. A Pokeball. Not his. Old. Faded. Dusty, as if it had been lost in snow for years. He picked it up. It didn't open. But it felt warm. And when he held it up to the light, he thought, just for a second, he saw something move inside. The wind howled louder that day, like voices arguing in a tunnel. And above him, etched faintly into a stone one word, scratched in with a blade or claw. Stay. But he didn't. He kept walking. Because now, he was no longer climbing to find someone. He was climbing to be found. The wind was sharper now. It didn't just blow past him. It cut through, like something alive, like some warning. But he didn't stop. He walked for hours until the trees thinned, and the ground sloped toward a frozen lake, surrounded by cliffs of silver stone. He had reached the summit base, and that's when he saw it. Something red. just beneath the surface of the frozen lake. He dropped to his knees, brushing away powdery snow with trembling hands. There it was, a cap, familiar, tilted at an angle, trapped in the ice like a memory trying to be forgotten. He pressed his palm to it, and it was warm. The trainer stared into the frozen water, but the reflection looking back wasn't his. It was a boy, silent, smiling just a little. Then blink gone, only his own face again. He stood up, heart pounding, and stepped back. But the silence was gone. Now, there was breathing, soft, close, not his. He turned. Nothing. Then footsteps, in snow, right behind him. He spun around, pokeball in hand, still no one. Just the lake, and his footprints. And now, another set beside his. They hadn't been there a moment ago. He didn't speak. He just walked, quickly, up the final slope toward the cliffs. But the wind, it followed him. And so did the voice, still soft, still distant. Go back. This time, he answered, I can't. That night he didn't set up camp. He simply sat on a rock under the stars, clutching the old pokeball he'd found. And in the distance, on a narrow ledge far above, he saw a figure, standing, watching, wearing a cap, red. The summit of Mount Silver wasn't loud. It was the quietest place in the world. No wind, no wild cries. Just stillness, like the mountain itself was holding its breath. And in the center, a flat patch of ground ringed with stone, like a battle arena carved by time. The trainer stepped into it. His breath fogged in the cold. His heart beat louder than his footsteps. And then he saw him, across the field. The same figure, same cap, same silence. The boy stood there, unmoving. Snow didn't fall on him. It fell around him like the world knew not to touch. The trainer opened his mouth, but no words came out. So he raised a pokeball, hands shaking. Ready? The figure across from him did the same. Slowly, calmly. Like this had happened before, 1,000 times. But no one threw, no one shouted. Instead, the trainer blinked, and suddenly the boy was gone. He looked around. Nothing. Just snow, sky, and stone. Then the old pokeball in his hand burst open, by itself, and from it came nothing. Not a light, not a cry, just a cold wind, and a whisper from behind. He's still here. The trainer turned. And there, standing right beside him, now, was the boy. Not moving, not blinking. His cap shadowed his eyes. But he smiled, just a little, and slowly reached out, not to battle, but to take back the pokeball. The trainer handed it over, without fear, without question. It was never his to begin with. The boy turned away, took a few steps, then stopped. Snow swirled around them both like a veil closing over a memory. And just before he vanished completely, the boy said one word, "Stay," and disappeared into the snow. By morning, the summit had changed. Where there was only wind and ice the night before, now stood a cabin, small, crooked, tucked near a cliff edge like it had always been there, but the trainer knew it hadn't. He stepped closer. Smoke drifted from the chimney. The window flickered with warm orange glow, and carved above the door, a familiar symbol, the mark worn on a red cap. He reached for the doorknob. It turned easily, and the cabin welcomed him in. It was warm. A fire crackled in the hearth, A kettle whistled on the stove, and a blanket was already laid out near the fire, waiting. He stepped inside, closed the door. His footsteps didn't echo. The walls were filled with photos, but all the faces were turned away, blurry, like memories no one could quite hold on to. And on the table, a Pokédex, dusty, dead. He opened it anyway. It blinked, just once, and whispered a name. Red, then silence again. The trainer sat near the fire. Something about this place didn't feel haunted. It felt tired, like a resting place, for someone who'd been waiting a very long time. He didn't sleep. Not fully. He dozed in pieces, hearing footsteps outside the cabin, but never a knock. At one point, he opened his eyes and saw a red cap hanging by the door. It hadn't been there before. He reached for it, held it in his hands. The fabric was soft, old, well-loved. He placed it gently on the table, and behind him, a voice, soft, right by his ear. He stayed. The fire flickered low. Snow drifted against the window. And somewhere in the mountain's heart, another trainer's story ended, or began. Morning never came. Not really. Just a gray light through the cabin window, soft and heavy, like the sky forgot how to shine. The trainer sat at the table. The fire had gone out, but he didn't feel cold. The cap was still in front of him. The Pokédex beside it. And now a journal, leather-bound, with initials burned into the spine, RK. He opened it. Only one page had writing. If you found this, then I'm already part of the mountain. The next page was blank. So was the next. And the next. Until the last one. A single line, written in shaky, familiar handwriting. He's not a ghost. He just never left. Outside, the wind picked up again. But this time, it didn't howl. It spoke. Voices layered in the snow, some laughing, some crying, some calling out names that had been forgotten for years. The trainer stood, opened the cabin door. And where the mountain had been, there was only white, endless soft white, like the world had erased itself. But he stepped out anyway. He didn't pack. He didn't look back. Because you can't leave a place that you've become part of. Days later, a search team reached the summit. They found the cabin, warm, firelit. But no one inside. Only a red cap on the table, and a pokeball that wouldn't open. They didn't stay long, because behind the cabin, in the fresh snow, there were two sets of footprints, both leading into the woods, neither coming back out. And as they left, one of them swore they heard a Pokédex voice, murmur from the wind, Pikachu, an electric-type Pokémon. And now, sleepy cutie, you're safe. The mountain is quiet. The story is over. But if you ever hear wind tapping your window late at night, don't worry. Probably just the cold. Or maybe someone who never left. Good night, little one. Sleep warm. Sleep safe. And if you ever dream of Mount Silver, don't follow the footprints. Let them go on without you. A young girl, her name was Lila, walked a narrow forest path. Her backpack was heavy. Her pokeballs rattled gently at her belt. But she wasn't afraid. Not yet. She had taken a wrong turn 2 hours ago. She was sure of it. But the path kept leading her somewhere. Somewhere her map didn't show. And that's when she found it. A clearing. Strange, circular. And in the center, a single PokeDoll. Small, faded. Its stitching undone at the edges. one eye missing. She tilted her head. Who would leave a toy all the way out here? She stepped closer. And the woods. I went silent. No wind. No Pidgey songs. Not even her own footsteps made sound now. She knelt beside the doll. It was old, but not dirty. Not wet from the forest. Not worn by time. And on its tag, barely hanging on by a thread, were the stitched letters, "To my best friend." Lila picked it up, and the wind returned instantly. Violent, sharp. The trees groaned. Something in the woods had noticed. Something woke up. She turned quickly, almost dropping the doll. Branches snapped in the distance. But no Pokémon came out. Just the feeling. The feeling of being watched. She shoved the doll in her bag, trying to convince herself it was just a toy. Just forgotten. She walked faster now. No more exploring. No more detours. She wanted out. But the path behind her was gone. The trail she came from had vanished. And when she looked over her shoulder, the PokeDoll wasn't in her bag anymore. It was in her arms. Sleepy cutie. Don't be scared. Stay wrapped up. Because this was just the beginning. Lila stood frozen. The PokeDoll was in her arms, but she didn't remember picking it up. It smiled. Its stitched mouth curved just a little more than before. Was that her imagination? She placed it gently back on the ground and turned. There a new path, twisting between black trees that hadn't been there moments ago. She didn't want to walk it. But something about the doll's single-button eye made her feet move. The forest had changed. No bird Pokémon. No rustling. Only soft giggles. Childlike, far away. Sometimes near. The path under her boots wasn't dirt anymore. It was layers of leaves, flattened by hundreds of tiny circular prints. Not human. Not Pokémon either. Like the soft dragging of fabric legs. The trees leaned in. Closer. Their trunks patterned like staring eyes. Or were they? She turned quickly. Nothing. But ahead, something swayed. A figure? No, just a tree with something hanging from it. She stepped closer. A branch. And dangling from it, another PokeDoll. Different. Newer. With both eyes. A tiny bell sewn into its ear. It swayed gently, though there was no wind. Lila reached for it, and it blinked. Just once. She stumbled backward. The doll didn't move again. But she could hear it now. A soft hum. Like a lullaby. Low, off-key, coming from deeper in the woods. It was calling her. Pulling at her. She looked down. The first doll was back in her arms. She didn't scream. But she wanted to. Instead, she kept walking. Because what else could she do? Behind her, the path closed again. The forest didn't want her to leave. Not yet. And the dolls, they were getting closer. Every time she blinked, there were more of them. Hiding behind trunks. Peeking from above. Dangling in clusters like rotten fruit. She closed her eyes. Took a breath. And whispered to herself. It's just a forest. It's just a toy. But in her ear, a whisper back. Not anymore. Sleepy cutie. Don't open your closet. Don't look under the bed. Just stay cozy. Stay wrapped up. Lila walked deeper. The path was crooked now, winding like thread being pulled too tight. She was holding the PokeDoll close, though she didn't remember deciding to. Its button eye was warm. Its fabric chest rose and fell, just slightly. She didn't ask how. Ahead, a soft yellow glow flickered between the trees. Lanterns. Hanging from crooked poles, each one swaying gently in the still air. They marked a clearing, not the same as before. This one had a circle of chairs, old wooden chairs, all facing inward. And seated in them were more PokeDolls, taller, older, some stitched with bone-white thread, others with fur that looked too real. Each one held a sewing needle. Each one had hands, not cloth hands, real ones, shriveled, still, but gripping the needles tight. Lila stepped into the circle. She didn't want to, but her feet kept moving. The lanterns brightened. The dolls didn't move, but the thread in their needles began to twitch, like something unseen was pulling it. She heard a voice now, not loud, not cruel, just wrong. "Sit, little seamstress." A single chair sat open, wood splintered, cushion sunken, like it had been waiting for her for a long, long time. Lila didn't sit. She turned, ready to run, but the circle had closed. The dolls were standing now, their heads twitching side to side, thread unraveling from their sleeves. One raised its needle. It pointed at her backpack, where the original PokeDoll had vanished. A thumping noise, low, heavy. From the ground? No, from her chest. The PokeDoll was back in her arms, but it wasn't limp now. It lifted its head slowly and spoke. "You found me. Now you have to finish me." Lila screamed. No sound came out. The forest had taken her voice. She backed into the center of the circle. The dolls didn't follow. Instead, the thread from their needles rose like spider legs arching, reaching. She fell to her knees. The PokeDoll stared at her. Its mouth began to stitch itself closed, and then opened again, with a smile. "Sleepy cutie, you're still here with me, so hold your plushie tight." Lila sat in the center of the circle. Her breath shivered in the air, but the forest was far too warm. The PokeDoll was quiet again, its stitched smile somehow wider, almost proud. All around her, the tall dolls had frozen needles dangling from their hands, their threads stretching like web across the trees. Lila didn't know what would happen if one touched her, but she didn't want to find out. She crawled backward, careful not to touch the threads on the forest floor. The moment her fingers brushed a single strand, the trees moaned, low, groaning, like old wood snapping underwater. And behind her, something moved, not walked. Slid. A trail of stitches weaved through the dirt. Fresh, still tightening. She followed it with her eyes, up a tree trunk, around a branch. And dangling there like a marionette was a child. Eyes sewn shut, mouth open wide, not screaming, but smiling. His Pokédex hung loosely at his belt. She recognized the uniform. A junior trainer's league jacket. It was nearly covered in thread. This child had been made into a doll. Lila staggered back, hands trembling. From the circle, the taller dolls raised their arms in perfect sync. And in one voice, a whisper stitched into the wind, they asked, "Will you join our collection?" The PokeDoll in her arms stirred. She looked down, and it was no longer soft, no longer cloth. It had become a mask. Hers. She ran. Through the trees, past the stitched child, past the crooked lanterns and the reaching thread. The path lit itself before her, not to guide her, but to lead her deeper. And as she ran, a voice echoed in the dark woods, sing-song and gentle. "The forest makes no waste. Every doll will find its face. Sleepy cutie, you're brave to still be here. Keep your blanket up to your nose. The forest had shifted. Lila felt it in her chest, like the trees were pressing closer, like the dirt under her feet was holding her weight a little too long. Her arms were empty now. The PokeDoll had vanished, but the warmth it left behind still pulsed through her hands. A thick curtain of vines parted before her. Behind them, a wooden cabin sagged between the trees. Its roof was made of bent branches, its walls stitched together from dozens of torn tents, old coats, even what looked like a trainer's scarf. Smoke coiled from the chimney, but it smelled not of fire. It smelled of thread, burnt, twisted, sweet. She stepped through the doorway. Inside, spools of yarn spun themselves. Dolls hung from the rafters, stitched from things no doll should ever be made of. Their eyes followed her, all of them. And in the center, on a crooked rocking chair, at the doll maker. He was tall, too tall. His back hunched, his arms too long, fingers like threads themselves. He wore a mask made of PokeDoll faces, all stitched together, each one softly smiling. He rocked slowly, and in his lap he sewed, not with needles, with whispers. Each word he spoke curled into the air like a stitch, weaving itself into the body of a new PokeDoll. Lila watched as it blinked, before it had eyes. "You've brought me something rare," he said, his voice dry as dust. A girl brave enough to hold the cursed one, long enough for it to remember. He pointed. Behind him, a tall glass jar. Inside, floating in greenish light, was her PokeDoll. Only now, it had her face. "I don't want it," Lila whispered. But the doll maker laughed, softly, sadly. They all say that, until they realize it's the only way to stay forgotten. He stood, rising higher than the ceiling should allow. His fingers reached for her, and her heart stopped. Lila couldn't move. The doll maker's hands were shadows now, reaching, unraveling the very space around her. Behind him, the glass jar trembled. Her PokeDoll, her face, pressed softly against the inside of the glass. Its stitched mouth moved. "Help me." Not a command. Not a threat. Just a whisper. Like a friend. Lila's hands tightened into fists. She wasn't afraid anymore. Not of dolls. Not of thread. Not of being forgotten. She remembered something. The PokeDoll hadn't followed her. She had followed it, because deep inside, a part of her had always wondered what it meant to disappear so gently. But not now. Not here. Not like this. She stepped forward straight toward the doll maker. The room bent. The dolls screamed. The doll maker raised a hand, and the air around her twisted into a web of string. But Lila didn't stop. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something tiny. A broken Pokeball keychain. Her first one. Scratched. Faded. She'd kept it all this time. And now, she pressed it to her heart and whispered, "I'm not yours to make." The PokeDoll in the jar shattered the glass. Light spilled everywhere, warm, golden, real. The forest shrieked. The walls of the cabin unraveled. The threads snapped. The doll's felon turned to leaves. And the doll maker? He didn't scream. He just whispered, "Another one lost to waking." Lila opened her eyes. She was back at the forest's edge. Sunrise breaking through the branches. No PokeDoll. No thread. No cabin. Only her backpack. A single broken Pokeball keychain. And one small button in her hand. "Sleepy cutie, that was a long journey. And you made it through the woods. You held on through the dark, through the whispers, through the thread. So now, close your eyes. You're safe. You're warm. The forest can't find you here. Good night, my little doll. Sleep softly. Dream kindly. And remember, not all lost things want to be found. Shh. It's over now. The dolls have quieted. The forest has gone still. And you, sleepy cutie, you've made it home. Let your thoughts gently fade. Let your blankets keep you warm. And let the dreams come, the soft ones, the sweet ones, the ones that never stitch too tight. Close your eyes. Sleep well. And remember, the PokeDoll only visits those who listens too closely. But you're safe now. Good night. Sleep softly. And we'll meet again in the next bedtime shadow.